The sky above the repair station turned dark with smoke and fire. Minho looked up from his workbench and saw something falling from the clouds. It was not a meteor. It was not a cargo ship. It was something else, something that moved with purpose even as it fell. The crash shook the ground beneath his feet. Minho grabbed his tool bag and ran toward the impact site. His repair station sat alone on the edge of Colony World Tayson, far from the main settlements. Out here, he was the only help for 100 miles in any direction. When he reached the crash site, Minho stopped and stared. The ship was unlike anything he had seen before. It was built from dark metal that seemed to absorb light. The hull was covered in scales instead of panels. Steam rose from the wreckage, and the air smelled like burnt copper and something wild. A sound came from inside the ship. It was low and rumbling, like distant thunder. Minho took a step back, his hand moving to the plasma cutter on his belt. He was a mechanic, not a soldier, but living alone on the frontier had taught him to be careful. The side of the ship opened with a screech of tearing metal. Something emerged from the darkness inside. Minho's breath caught in his throat. It was massive. The creature stood at least 12 feet tall, with scales that shimmered between deep purple and black. Its body was shaped like a human's, but covered in armor-like plating. Wings, torn and bleeding, hung from its back. The head was long and angular, with eyes that glowed like molten gold. When it opened its mouth, Minho saw rows of sharp teeth. A dragon. The stories were true. The Karvesh Empire existed beyond human space, and their warriors were as fierce as legends claimed. The dragon warrior took one step forward and collapsed to its knees. Dark blood, almost purple in color, dripped from dozens of wounds across its body. One wing looked broken, bent at an angle that made Minho wince. "Stay back, human," the dragon said. Its voice was deep and harsh, filtered through a translator device attached to its throat. "I am Karavesh of the Burning Sky Fleet. I am defeated. I seek only passage through your territory." Minho did not move. He had heard stories about the Karavesh. They were proud warriors who valued honor above all else. They conquered worlds and never surrendered. To see one brought so low was shocking. "You're badly hurt," Minho said, keeping his voice calm. "Let me help you." "I need no help from lesser species," Karvesh growled. But even as he spoke, his body swayed. More blood dripped onto the dusty ground. "I ask only for scraps. Metal pieces you do not need. I will repair my vessel and leave this place." "Scraps," Minho repeated. He looked at the ruined ship. Half the hull was torn open. The engines were cracked and leaking fuel. One of the wings had been completely sheared off. That ship won't fly again, not with scraps. Karvesh's golden eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made Minho's survival instinct scream. "Then I will die with honor beside my vessel. Give me the scraps, human. It is all I ask, all I deserve." Something in those words made Minho pause. All I deserve. He had heard that kind of resignation before from people who had given up on themselves. It never sat right with him. "Come to my station," Minho said. "Let me look at your injuries first. Then we'll talk about your ship." "I am your enemy," Karvesh said. His voice was getting weaker. "My people have fought yours at the border worlds. We are at war." "Maybe," Minho said, "but right now you're just someone who needs help, and I'm the only mechanic for 100 miles. Karvesh stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, the proud warrior nodded. He tried to stand, but his legs gave out. Minho rushed forward without thinking, ducking under one massive arm to help support the dragon's weight. Karvesh was heavy, far heavier than a human of similar size would be. His scales felt like warm stone under Minho's hands. Together, they made their way slowly back to the repair station. Minho's workshop was a large building made of prefab panels and corrugated metal. Inside, it was cluttered with parts, tools, and half-finished projects. He cleared off his main workbench and helped Karvesh sit down on the reinforced floor beside it. The dragon warrior's breathing was labored. Up close, Minho could see how bad the wounds really were. Plasma burns covered Karvesh's chest and arms. Several scales had been torn away, revealing the muscle and bone beneath. The broken wing hung at a terrible angle. "Who did this to you?" Minho asked as he gathered his medical supplies. He had a kit for treating alien injuries. Living on the frontier meant being prepared for anything. "My own people," Karvesh said bitterly. "I questioned our commander's orders. He wanted to destroy a human colony ship, even though they carried no weapons, only families seeking new homes. I refused to fire. I tried to stop it." Minho's hands paused over the medical kit. "You protected human civilians?" "I am a warrior, not a murderer of children," Karvesh said. His golden eyes met Minho's. "My commander named me traitor. My own fleet shot me down. Now I am defeated and dishonored. I have no clan, no family, no honor. I am nothing. I deserve nothing but scraps." Minho looked at the broken warrior sitting in his workshop. He thought about what it must have taken to stand against your own people for what was right. He thought about the word scraps and what it really meant. "You're wrong," Minho said quietly. "You're not nothing, and you deserve more than scraps." Karavesh's eyes widened slightly, but he said nothing. He simply watched as Minho began to clean and treat his wounds, wondering what this strange human meant by those words. Minho worked through the night treating Karavesh's injuries. The dragon warrior remained silent for most of it, watching the human with suspicious golden eyes. Every time Minho applied medicine or sealed a wound, Karvesh flinched but made no sound of pain. "Your people have medicine that works on us," Karvesh observed as Minho finished wrapping a plasma burn on his arm. "We trade with a lot of species out here," Minho explained. "You have to be ready for anything on the frontier. Stay still. I need to set that wing." Karvesh's entire body tensed. "The wing cannot be saved. It is too damaged." "Maybe," Minho said, "but I won't know until I try." He spent 2 hours carefully realigning the bones in the broken wing, using a combination of medical glue and temporary braces. Karvesh remained perfectly still throughout the procedure, though sweat formed on his scaled forehead. When it was done, the wing was bound tightly against Karvesh's back. It would not be useful for flying anytime soon, but at least the bones were properly set. "You should rest," Minho said, stepping back to examine his work. "Healing takes time." "Time I do not have," Karvesh replied. "I must repair my ship and leave before my former fleet finds me here. If they discover you helped me, they will destroy this place and you with it." Minho wiped his hands on a rag. "Then I guess we better get started on that ship." Karvesh stared at him. "I told you, I ask only for scraps. I will do the work myself." "And I told you, that ship won't fly with scraps," Minho said. He walked over to his computer terminal and pulled up the scan data from the crash site. The holographic display showed the dragon ship from every angle, highlighting the extensive damage in red. Karvesh struggled to his feet and limped over to look at the display. His expression darkened. "It is worse than I thought." "The hull is breached in 17 places," Minho said, pointing to each spot. "Your main engine is cracked. The fuel system is leaking. Your navigation computer is completely fried. And that's just what I can see from the outside." "Then it is hopeless," Karvesh said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "I will die on this world." "Not if I have anything to say about it," Minho replied. He closed the hologram and looked up at the towering dragon. "I can fix your ship. It'll take some time, but I can do it." Karvesh shook his head slowly. "You do not understand. I cannot pay you. Everything I owned was aboard that ship, and most of it was destroyed in the crash. I have no currency, no trade goods, nothing of value." "I didn't ask for payment," Minho said. The dragon's golden eyes narrowed. Why would you help me? My people are your enemies. Minho shrugged. You said it yourself. You protected human families when you didn't have to. You stood up for what was right, even when it cost you everything. That tells me more about who you are than what flag your people fly. Karavesh was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than before. In my culture, accepting help without the ability to repay it is a great shame. It means admitting you are weak, worthless. That's not how we see it, Minho said. He pulled out a chair and sat down, gesturing for Karavesh to do the same. The dragon lowered himself carefully to the floor, his injured wing making sitting in a human chair impossible. Humans believe that helping each other makes us all stronger, Minho continued. We have a saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. It means when we help others succeed, we all benefit. Your species is strange, Karavesh said, but there was something in his tone that might have been respect. Maybe, Minho agreed with a small smile, but we've survived a lot by being strange. Now, let's talk about your ship. I'm going to need your help with the repairs. I know nothing of human tools or methods, Karavesh admitted. Then I'll teach you, Minho said simply. Over the next 3 days, Minho and Karavesh worked together. They started early each morning and worked until late at night. Minho showed the dragon warrior how to use human welding equipment, how to patch hull breaches with composite materials, and how to test repaired systems safely. At first, Karavesh was clumsy with the unfamiliar tools. His massive hands, built for combat, struggled with the delicate work. But he learned quickly. By the second day, he was working alongside Minho with increasing confidence. They talked while they worked. Minho asked questions about Karavesh's culture, and the dragon answered, slowly at first, then more freely. He explained how the Karavesh Empire valued strength and honor above all else. Warriors who were defeated in battle were expected to die with dignity, not seek help from others. That seems harsh, Minho said as they worked on replacing a damaged engine component. It is our way, Karavesh replied. The weak are cast aside so the strong may flourish. It has made us a powerful empire. But you lost good warriors that way, Minho pointed out. People who could have recovered, learned from their mistakes, become stronger. Instead, they just died. Karavesh paused in his work. His golden eyes stared at the tool in his hands. I never thought of it that way. Minho also shared stories about human culture. He told Karavesh about Earth, about the colony worlds, about humanity's long struggle to reach the stars. He explained how humans had nearly destroyed themselves with wars, but had chosen cooperation instead. We're not perfect, Minho admitted. We still fight sometimes, still make mistakes, but we try to learn from them. We try to be better. On the third evening, Minho prepared food for both of them. He had nutrient paste that was safe for Karavesh to eat, along with some fresh vegetables from his small greenhouse. They sat together in the workshop, eating and resting their tired muscles. Why did you become a mechanic? Karavesh asked suddenly. Minho looked up from his food. My father was a mechanic. He taught me that fixing broken things was important work. Machines break down, ships get damaged. But with the right knowledge and tools, almost anything can be repaired, made whole again. He paused, then added, he used to say that about people too, that everyone gets broken sometimes, but that doesn't mean they can't be fixed. Karavesh was quiet for a long time. Then he said, your father was wise. He was, Minho agreed softly. I wish you could have met him. They returned to work the next morning. The ship was taking shape now. The hull was sealed. The engines were rebuilt. Systems were coming back online one by one. Karavesh worked with steady determination, but Minho noticed the dragon was quieter than usual. Something on your mind? Minho asked as they tested the navigation computer. Karavesh flexed his clawed hands. I am thinking about what you said, about fixing broken things, about people, and I am wondering, Karvesh said slowly, if perhaps my people have been wrong about many things. On the 5th day of repairs, something changed between them. They were working on the ship's weapons system when Karvesh suddenly stopped and turned to face Minho. I do not understand you, human, the dragon said. His golden eyes were intense, searching. I came here expecting scraps. Discarded pieces of metal that you no longer wanted. That is what defeated warriors deserve. That is what I deserve. Minho set down his plasma welder and looked up at the towering alien. Why do you keep saying that? Why do you think that's what you deserve? Because I am defeated, Karvesh said, as if it was obvious. I failed in battle. I was cast out by my own people. In our culture, this makes me worth less than nothing. I am, how do you say it? Leftover. A scrap. No, Minho said firmly. No, you're not. Karvesh's scales shifted color slightly, darkening with what might have been confusion or anger. You do not understand our ways. Maybe I don't, Minho agreed. But I understand people. And I know the difference between scraps and someone who just needs help. He walked over to his workbench and picked up a twisted piece of metal. It was part of the original hull from Karvesh's ship, too damaged to be used in repairs. This is a scrap, Minho said, holding it up. It's broken beyond repair. It served its purpose, and now it's done. I'll recycle it, melt it down, turn it into something else. That's what scraps are for. He set the metal down and looked directly at Karvesh. But you're not a piece of metal. You're a living being with thoughts and feelings and choices. You stood up for what was right, even when it cost you everything. You protected innocent people. You have skills and knowledge and experience. How is any of that leftover? How is any of that worthless? Karvesh stared at him. For the first time since they had met, the proud warrior seemed uncertain. But I failed. So, Minho said, everyone fails sometimes. That doesn't make them garbage. It makes them someone who tried. My people do not see it this way, Karvesh said quietly. Then maybe your people are wrong, Minho replied. He softened his tone. Look, I don't know everything about your culture, but I know that throwing away good people just because they had one bad day is wasteful, it's cruel, and it's stupid. Karvesh's eyes flashed with what might have been anger, but Minho continued before he could speak. You protected civilians when ordered to kill them. That took courage, real courage, more than following orders ever could. Your commander was wrong, and you knew it. You chose honor over obedience. How does that make you worthless? The dragon warrior was silent for a long time. His clawed hands opened and closed slowly. In my culture, obedience to superiors is the highest virtue. To question orders is to question the strength of our entire hierarchy. Even when those orders are wrong? Minho asked. Strength determines what is right, Karvesh said, but his voice lacked conviction. No, Minho said gently. Strength determines who wins. Right and wrong are something different. You know that. You proved it when you refused to fire on those families. Karvesh turned away, looking out through the open workshop door at the distant wreckage of his ship. My commander believed he was strengthening our empire by eliminating future enemies. Human children would grow up to fight us. By destroying them, he prevented future battles. And you disagreed, Minho said. Karvesh paused. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. I looked at that colony ship and I saw younglings. I saw families. I remembered that even warriors come from somewhere. We all have mothers who bore us, fathers who taught us, siblings who played with us. He touched his chest with one clawed hand. I could not fire upon the future when I remembered my own past. Minho felt a deep respect for this massive alien warrior. That's called empathy. It's one of the most important things a person can have. My people call it weakness, Karvesh said bitterly. Your people are wrong, Minho said again, more firmly this time. Empathy isn't weakness. It's what separates people from animals. It's what makes civilization possible. Without it, you just have violence and survival. That's not strength. That's just brutality. Karvesh turned back to face him. You truly believe this? With everything in me, Minho said. Look at what we've accomplished in the last few days. We're from different species. Our people are at war. By all rights, we should be enemies. But instead, we worked together. We helped each other. We built something. That's what happens when you choose empathy over brutality. The dragon warrior looked around the workshop, at the tools they had used together, at the partially repaired ship visible through the door. I have learned more from you in 5 days than I learned in 20 years of military training. What have you learned? Minho asked curiously. Karvesh considered the question carefully. I learned that asking for help is not the same as admitting defeat. I learned that fixing broken things requires patience, not just strength. I learned that teaching someone is more valuable than simply doing the work yourself. He met Minho's eyes. And I learned that worth is not determined by victory or defeat, but by the choices we make. Minho smiled. See? You're not a scrap. You're a person who's learning and growing. That's the opposite of worthless. But my people will never accept these ideas, Karvesh said. If I return to the Empire with such thoughts, I will be killed as a traitor. Then don't go back to the Empire, Minho suggested. There are other places in the galaxy, other options. Karvesh shook his head slowly. You do not understand. The Karvesh Empire is expanding. They seek to conquer all the worlds in this sector, including human colonies. What I learned about humanity by refusing that order only confirmed their fears. You are compassionate, yes, but you are also resilient, adaptable. Your empathy makes you work together in ways my people never could. You are more dangerous than they realize, precisely because you value life. So what are you saying? Minho asked. I am saying that war is coming, Karvesh said grimly. A real war, not just border skirmishes. My people will not stop until they have conquered or destroyed humanity. And when that war comes, you will need every advantage you can get. Minho was quiet for a moment, processing this. What do you propose? Karvesh straightened to his full height. His golden eyes blazed with sudden determination. I propose that I do not run and hide. I propose that I return to my people, not as a defeated warrior seeking scraps, but as someone who has learned a new kind of strength. I will challenge their beliefs. I will show them that empathy is not weakness, that mercy is not failure, that there is a better way than endless conquest. They'll kill you, Minho said bluntly. Perhaps, Karvesh agreed, but perhaps not. Perhaps others have had similar doubts. Perhaps I can reach them. Perhaps I can start a change, however small. He looked at Minho. You gave me more than parts for my ship. You gave me a new way of seeing the universe. I cannot simply fly away and forget that. I must try to share it. Minho felt a chill run down his spine. This is dangerous. Really dangerous. All worthwhile things are, Karvesh said with something that might have been a smile. You taught me that broken things can be fixed. Perhaps my people are broken. Perhaps they can be fixed too. And if they can't be? Minho asked quietly. Karvesh's expression grew serious. Then at least I will have tried. And that, as you said, is what separates me from being a scrap. The repairs took another week to complete. During that time, Minho and Karvesh talked about everything. They discussed philosophy and strategy. They debated the nature of strength and weakness. They planned for possibilities neither wanted to consider, but both knew were likely. Minho taught Karvesh more than just mechanics. He showed the Dragon Warrior how humans organized their societies, how they made decisions through debate rather than dominance, how they valued innovation and cooperation. Karvesh absorbed it all like a dry sponge soaking up water. In return, Karvesh taught Minho about the Karvesh Empire. He explained their military structure, their technology, their strategies. He drew maps showing their territory and expansion plans. He shared tactical information that could save countless human lives if war truly came. "You know this makes you a traitor for real now," Minho said one evening as they reviewed star charts together. "Before, you just refused to follow one order. Now you're actively helping the enemy." Karvesh nodded slowly. "I know, but I have realized something important. My people are not my enemies, and you are not my enemies either. Our leaders may be at war, but that does not mean the war is right or necessary." "That's a dangerous way to think," Minho observed. "For both our peoples." "Yes," Karvesh agreed. "But it is true nonetheless. I have spent more time with you in these past weeks than I ever spent truly talking with my own squad members. We were trained to fight together, but not to think together, not to question together. There is a difference." Minho leaned back in his chair. "So what's your plan? You can't just fly back to your fleet and announce that everything they believe is wrong." "No," Karvesh said. "I must be subtle, patient. I will start with others like me, those who have had doubts but were afraid to voice them, warriors who have seen too much death and wonder if there is a better way. They exist. I know they do. I have seen the doubt in their eyes during battles." "And if you can't find enough of them?" Minho asked. Karvesh's expression darkened. "Then I will do what I can alone. Even if I fail, even if I die, perhaps my actions will plant seeds. Perhaps others will remember that there was once a warrior who chose a different path." They worked in silence for a while after that. The ship was nearly complete now. Just a few more systems to test, a few more components to calibrate. It would fly soon. Karvesh would leave. The thought made Minho unexpectedly sad. "I will miss these conversations," Karvesh said suddenly, as if reading Minho's thoughts. "Me too," Minho admitted. "It's not often you meet someone who makes you see the world differently." "You have given me a great gift," Karvesh said. "You have given me hope. I did not know I had lost it until you showed me it could exist again." Minho felt his throat tighten with emotion. "You gave me something too. You reminded me why I do this work, why I live out here alone, helping whoever needs it. It's not just about fixing machines, it's about fixing the broken connections between people." The next day, they completed the final repairs. The ship powered up smoothly, all systems functioning within normal parameters. Karvesh ran through the diagnostics carefully while Minho watched from his workshop. "Everything is perfect," Karvesh announced, his voice carrying a mixture of pride and sadness. "The ship is better than it was before it crashed. You are a master craftsman, Minho." "We're a good team," Minho corrected. "You did half the work." "You taught me how," Karvesh said. "That is worth more than the work itself." They stood together in the evening light, looking at the repaired vessel. It gleamed in the setting sun, its dark scales reflecting orange and gold. It looked powerful and deadly, a proper war machine. "Before I leave," Karvesh said slowly, "I want to give you something." "You don't have to," Minho started to say, but Karvesh held up a clawed hand. "I know I do not have to. I want to." The Dragon Warrior reached into a compartment on his ship and pulled out a small device. It looked like a pendant made of dark metal and crystal. "This is a personal communicator. It is keyed to my biosignature. No matter where I am in the galaxy, if you activate this, I will know. If you need help, I will come." Minho took the device carefully. It was warm in his hand, pulsing with a faint energy. Thank you, but I hope I never have to use it. As do I, Karvesh said. But hope is not a strategy, as my commanders would say. Though perhaps in this case they are correct. I have something for you too, Minho said. He went into his workshop and returned with a small toolkit. It was compact and well-made, containing everything needed for basic repairs. Human tools, in case you need to fix something and remind yourself what you learned here. Karvesh accepted the kit with reverence. I will treasure this. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Finally, Karvesh extended one massive hand. Minho gripped it firmly, feeling the strength in those clawed fingers, knowing they were being gentle for his sake. Goodbye, friend, Karvesh said. The word friend came out tentatively, as if he was testing how it felt. Thank you for not giving me scraps. Goodbye, Karvesh, Minho replied. Thank you for showing me that enemies can become friends. The dragon warrior climbed into his ship. The engines powered up with a deep thrumming sound. Minho stepped back as the vessel lifted slowly into the air. It hovered for a moment, then shot upward into the darkening sky. Minho watched until it was just a point of light among the stars. Then it was gone. He returned to his workshop feeling emptier than he had in years. The building seemed too quiet now, too lonely. He had gotten used to Karvesh's presence, to having someone to talk with and work beside. But Minho knew that what they had started here was bigger than their friendship. Karvesh was carrying new ideas into the heart of the Empire. Ideas about empathy and worth and the value of every individual. Those ideas could change everything, or they could get Karvesh killed. All Minho could do was wait and hope. Weeks passed, then months. Minho heard news about the war from passing ships and colony broadcasts. The Karvesh Empire was still expanding, still attacking human settlements. But there were reports of something strange happening within their military. Some Karvesh warriors were refusing certain orders. Some were choosing to capture rather than kill. There were even reports of Karvesh soldiers helping civilians evacuate before attacks. It was subtle, barely noticeable among the larger violence of war, but it was there. Minho wondered if Karvesh was behind it. He wondered if his friend was still alive. He wondered if the seeds they had planted together were beginning to grow. Late one night, sitting alone in his workshop, Minho looked at the communicator Karvesh had given him. He did not activate it, not yet, but holding it gave him comfort. Somewhere out there, across the vast darkness of space, a dragon warrior was fighting a different kind of battle. A battle not with weapons, but with ideas. And that battle, Minho believed, was the one that truly mattered. 3 years passed. The war between humans and the Karvesh Empire continued, but something fundamental had shifted. Minho followed the news religiously, piecing together fragments of information from traders, refugees, and military broadcasts. The changes started small: a Karvesh commander who chose to negotiate instead of attack. A squadron that deliberately missed civilian targets. Warriors who spoke of honor in new ways, connecting it to mercy rather than conquest. At first, the Empire's leadership tried to suppress these acts. Warriors were executed for showing weakness. Entire units were disbanded for questioning orders. But you cannot execute an idea. The more the leadership pushed back, the more the new philosophy spread. They called it the Minho Doctrine, though few knew where the name came from. Minho heard this term for the first time from a human military officer who stopped at his station for repairs. The woman had been injured in a border skirmish, and her ship needed new thrusters. "You heard about this Minho Doctrine thing?" she asked while Minho worked on her vessel. He tried to keep his voice casual. "No." "What is it?" "Some kind of movement within the Karvesh military," she explained. "They're saying strength isn't just about winning battles. Something about warriors having value even when they lose. About protecting civilians instead of slaughtering them. It's causing chaos in their ranks." That's interesting, Minho said carefully. Some of our intelligence people think it started with one warrior, the officer continued. A guy who refused to fire on a colony ship and got kicked out of his fleet. Supposedly he came back and started spreading these ideas. Nobody knows if he's even real, though. Might just be propaganda. Minho said nothing, but his hands moved a little faster on the repairs. The officer watched him work for a moment, then asked, "You ever meet any Karvesh personally? Out here on the frontier?" "Once," Minho admitted. "He needed help with his ship." "And you helped him? Even though we're at war?" "He needed help," Minho said simply. That seemed more important than flags and borders. The officer was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Maybe you've got the right idea. I'm tired of killing. I'm tired of watching people die. If this Minho doctrine thing means less death, I'm all for it." After she left, Minho stood in his workshop for a long time, thinking. He wondered if Karvesh was still alive. He wondered how much the dragon warrior had sacrificed to spread these ideas. He wanted to use the communicator to reach out, but something held him back. If Karvesh was in danger, an unexpected communication might expose him. So Minho waited and watched and hoped. More months passed. The reports became more dramatic. Entire fleets of Karvesh warriors were abandoning aggressive campaigns. Some were even defecting to neutral zones, refusing to fight for either side. The empire was fracturing from within. Then came the news that changed everything. A delegation of Karvesh warriors had requested a meeting with human leadership. They wanted to negotiate peace, not surrender, not conquest, but actual peace. A shared galaxy where both species could exist without war. The negotiations took place on a neutral station. Minho watched the broadcasts like everyone else in human space, his heart pounding as the cameras showed the Karvesh delegation entering the meeting hall, and there, at the front of the group, was Karvesh. He looked different, older. More scars covered his scales, evidence of battles fought and survived. But his golden eyes still blazed with that same intensity, and when he spoke to the human diplomats, his voice carried authority and conviction. "We come not as the defeated, but as warriors who have chosen a different path," Karvesh told the gathered humans. "We have learned that true strength comes not from conquest, but from the courage to change. We have learned that honor is not found in domination, but in choosing what is right over what is easy." The human diplomats listened carefully. Minho could see their skepticism, their uncertainty. Years of war do not end easily. "Why should we trust you?" one diplomat asked. "Your people have killed thousands of ours." "You should not trust us because of what we were," Karvesh replied. "You should trust us because of what we are choosing to become." "I stand here with 50 commanders who once led fleets against you. Each of us has put down our weapons and taken up new ideas. Each of us has chosen peace over glory. That choice cost us everything in our old world. But it gave us something more valuable. It gave us hope for a new one." Another diplomat spoke up. "Where did these new ideas come from? What changed?" Karvesh was silent for a moment. Then he said, 3 years ago, I was a defeated warrior seeking scraps. I expected to be given garbage and left to die. Instead, a human mechanic gave me something infinitely more valuable. He gave me dignity. He taught me that worth is not measured by victory or defeat, but by the choices we make. He showed me that empathy is not weakness, but the foundation of true civilization. This mechanic, the diplomat said. Who is he? Where can we find him? He lives alone on Colony World Taysan, Karvesh said. His name is Minho, and everything we are trying to build here began in his workshop. The broadcast cut to shocked reactions from the diplomats. Minho sat frozen in his chair, unable to move or breathe. His name. Karvesh had said his name. The entire galaxy now knew his name. His communicator suddenly vibrated. Minho picked it up with shaking hands and activated it. Karvesh's voice came through immediately. "My friend," the dragon warrior said, "I hope you are watching. I hope you understand what you started. You gave a broken warrior more than scraps. You gave him a revolution." "Karvesh," Minho whispered, "you're alive." "Barely," Karvesh said with what might have been a laugh. "There have been assassination attempts. Battles with loyalist factions. Many who followed me have died. But we have reached this point. We have brought peace within reach. And it all began when you refused to see me as garbage." Tears ran down Minho's face. "I just helped someone who needed it." "You did more than that," Karvesh said gently. "You showed me that every being has worth. That defeat is not the same as worthlessness, that there is strength in compassion. Those simple truths have transformed an empire. They have ended a war. They have saved countless lives on both sides." "I don't know what to say," Minho admitted. "Say you will come to the Peace Summit," Karvesh requested. "The diplomats want to meet you. They want to understand how one mechanic in a lonely workshop changed the course of galactic history. And I would like to see my friend again." Minho wiped his eyes and smiled. "I'll be there." The Peace Summit lasted 3 weeks. Minho spent much of it sitting beside Karvesh, watching as two civilizations worked to build bridges instead of weapons. It was hard work. There was anger and grief on both sides. But there was also hope. The Karvesh warriors who had embraced the new philosophy spoke to human leaders about their culture, their struggles, their journey toward change. They acknowledged the harm their people had done. They worked to make amends. In turn, human leaders listened and considered. Slowly, carefully, trust began to form. Minho spent his evenings talking with Karvesh, catching up on 3 years of separation. The dragon warrior told stories of his battles, not against humans, but against the old ways of thinking within his own people. He spoke of allies he had found and friends he had lost. He carried scars from both weapons and words. "Was it worth it?" Minho asked one night as they sat together overlooking the station's observation deck. Karvesh looked out at the stars. "Every moment, every sacrifice. I have watched warriors learn that strength comes in many forms. I have seen enemies become allies. I have witnessed the beginning of a new age for my people. How could that not be worth it?" "You could have died," Minho pointed out. "I could have," Karvesh agreed. "But I would have died as myself, fighting for what I believed was right. That is far better than living as someone else's tool, following orders I knew were wrong." He turned to look at Minho. "You taught me that. You taught me that we define our own worth through our choices." The peace treaty was signed on the final day of the summit. Leaders from both civilizations put their marks on the document that would end the war and establish a new relationship between their peoples. But the real celebration happened later, in a small gathering of the warriors who had fought to make this peace possible. They shared stories and food, former enemies now sitting together as equals. Karvesh stood and raised a cup. "I propose a toast," he said, "to the human who refused to give me scraps, to the friend who showed me a better way, to Minho, who changed everything." The gathered warriors, both human and Karvesh, raised their cups and cheered. Minho felt his face flush with embarrassment, but he also felt pride. Not pride in himself, but pride in what they had all accomplished together. Years later, historians would write about this moment. They would call it the Minho Revolution. They would study how one simple act of kindness had cascaded into galactic change. They would debate the exact mechanics of social transformation and cultural evolution. But Minho knew the truth was simpler than any of that. He had simply refused to believe that anyone was worthless. He had given a desperate warrior dignity instead of scraps, and that warrior had carried that gift back to his people and showed them a new way of seeing the universe. It was not magic. It was not destiny. It was just one person choosing to help another, and that choice rippling outward in ways neither of them could have predicted. Sometimes, Minho thought, the most powerful revolutions start in the quietest places, in a lonely workshop on the edge of civilization, with a simple decision to treat everyone with respect, regardless of who they are or where they come from. Because no one is a scrap, everyone has worth, and sometimes all it takes is one person to prove it.